A very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha Television. It is the start of a brand new week, and in the next 30 minutes I'll be getting you all the updates on what is happening in India and across the world in the last 24 hours. We'll also be telling you what to expect in the day ahead. Let us start with the headlines. Last day of campaigning for final phase of elections in Uttar Pradesh and Manipur, voting to take place on 8th of March. Hearing of a Gayatri Prajapati case in Supreme Court, UP Governor writes to CM questioning constitutional morality of Prajapati's continuance in State Cabinet. India conveys deep concerns to the US over hate crimes. Ambassador Navtej Sarma underlines the need to prevent such incidents. State Department assures speedy justice. China cuts its GDP growth target to 25-year low of 6.5% in 2017. Premier warns of a further slowdown in face of complicated global picture. And North Korea launches 4 ballistic missiles towards Sea of Japan. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says that 3 of them fell into Japan's exclusive economic zone. Well, it is the last day of campaigning for the 7th in the final phase of Uttar Pradesh elections, and 40 seats spread across 7 districts, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi's constituency, will go to polls in 7th phase on 8th of March. Well, the districts where voting will be held on Wednesday are Jaunpur, Varanasi, Ghazipur, Mirzapur, Chandoli, Sonbhadra and Bhadoi districts. Well, 535 candidates, including 51 women, are in the fray in this phase. 1.41 crore voters are eligible to vote. Well, the BSP is contesting on 40 seats, while BJP on 32, SP on 31, Congress 9 and RLD 21 seats. All right, my colleague Kriti Mishra is in Varanasi at the moment. A very good morning, Kriti. Well, as the last phase of UP polls is now nearing, leaders of all political parties are leaving nothing to chance. Of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also camping in Varanasi city, which has become the center of the last phase elections. What is the mood that you can gauge, and what can we expect in the day ahead?
That's right, curtains will fall on the do and die campaign for the last and 7th phase of assembly elections. So definitely muscling all his resources very articulately and using his charisma to the hilt, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will go to Ramnagar, which is across Ganga River, and also he will address a rally in Rohania, giving a final push to the electioneering for the UP elections. Remember, Varanasi is the place where all political titans have actually swamped. So there are stalwarts of the Samajwadi Party, the Congress and the BJP, and specifically BJP, because several cabinet ministers are camping here, crafting BJP's strategy very, very specifically. Remember, Aishwarya, in 2012, when the Samajwadi Party and the Congress were fighting separately, they had polled cumulatively more votes than the BJP. So definitely they're trying to capitalize on that, with the Congress fighting on 3 constituencies spanning across the city, and the Samajwadi Party actually contesting 2 seats in the rural Varanasi, because Varanasi has 5 constituencies as far as Lok Sabha, the entire Lok Sabha constituency of Varanasi is concerned. So definitely a very high stakes arena for all the political parties, and not just a battle, but a battle of prestige here in Varanasi, and also for the last phase of UP Assembly elections. Aishwarya?
All right, Kriti, thank you so much for those updates from Varanasi there. We'll keep coming back to you in the day ahead as well. Meanwhile, as campaigning will draw to a close today, now there are several rallies slated in Uttar Pradesh. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will sign off his campaign trail with a rally in Rohania, a predominantly rural assembly segments on the outskirts of Varanasi. While BJP Chief Amit Shah will also address 4 rallies in Sonbhadra, Ghazipur, Jaunpur and Bhadoi. While UP Chief Minister Akhilesh Yadav will also address a string of 7 rallies today as well. And earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a roadshow in his parliamentary constituency Varanasi on Sunday. Well, at the end of the roadshow, he addressed a rally. At the rally, he said that his aim for the city is to retain its heritage, yet benefit from modern facilities. He accused the SP, Congress and the BSP of not promoting inclusive growth. He also alleged that despite the talent and potential in the people in eastern Uttar Pradesh, well, the state government has not done enough to channelize it. He also accused the Akhilesh Yadav government of not working for the state's development, even though the centre releases funds, fearing that union government will take the credit.
इसका पूरा कायाकल्प करने की जरूरत है। बनारस की आत्मा बनी रहे और सुविधाएं आधुनिक बनती चले, ऐसा बनारस बनाने का मेरा सपना है। सारा हिसाब किताब ये करने से वोट मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा तो करना। भाइयों बहनों, हम लोगों का मंत्र है सबका साथ, सबका साथ। लेकिन सपा हो, बसपा हो, कांग्रेस हो, उन्होंने जो राजनीति का कल्चर पैदा किया है, परंपरा पैदा की है, इसलिए उनकी रगों में यही विचार दौड़ता है कि कुछ का साथ, कुछ का विकास।
And the Prime Minister also addressed intellectuals at Kashi Samagam event. Well, he indirectly hit out at the Congress for what he alleged was a poor governance throughout the country. He also targeted some states saying that poverty, law and order issues are widespread in the communist-run states. He further added that the nation has never seen a communist government like the one in West Bengal.
एक हमारे देश में साम्यवादियों की सरकार देश ने देखी पश्चिम बंगाल में। आज वहां गरीबी, कानून व्यवस्था का अभाव, ये जितनी बुराइयां सार्वजनिक जीवन में आप कहें वो घर कर गई है। देश ने कांग्रेस पार्टी को देखा, हम कहां पहुंचे हैं कहने की जरूरत नहीं है, क्या हाल होकर के रहा हमारा। इतने लंबे अरसे तक एक दल सरकार चलाने के बाद भी कहां खड़े हैं।
And it is not just the BJP. Well, Chief Minister of the state, Akhilesh Yadav, is also not leaving any stone unturned to woo the voters in the state of Uttar Pradesh. While addressing an election rally in Sonbhadra, Akhilesh attacked Prime Minister Narendra Modi, saying that his roadshows are bound to fail like the earlier ones and would stray the PM somewhere else. Well, he took a dig at the BJP and said that despite his open challenge to the Prime Minister to enlist his 3 years work done for Uttar Pradesh, he is yet to divulge them. He also criticized the Modi government for demonetization, saying that it has ruined the entire country and forced the people to stand in queues.
रेडियो पे मन की बात, टीवी पे मन की बात, बताओ 3 साल में कोई समझ पाया उनके मन की बात? और लोगों को वादा किया था कि जब पैसा आ जाएगा भ्रष्टाचार का, काले धन वाला, तो हम अकाउंटों में 15-15 लाख रुपए भिजवा देंगे। बताइए किसी के अकाउंट में 15 लाख रुपए आया हो?
And Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi also addressed back-to-back election rallies in Sonbhadra, Mirzapur and Jaunpur districts. Well, Rahul Gandhi took a dig at Prime Minister Narendra Modi, saying that his government has waived off loans worth 1.4 lakh crore owed by 50 rich people, but it has not done anything to write off 50,000 rupees crore to the poor farmers. Rahul Gandhi also accused the Modi government of not fulfilling its electoral promise of tackling unemployment, which he termed as the biggest challenge before the people of the state.
2.5 साल पहले आपने हिंदुस्तान के हर युवा से कहा था कि हर साल नरेंद्र मोदी स्वयं 2 करोड़ युवाओं को देश में रोजगार देगा। आप मुझे बताइए भाइयों और बहनों, नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने पिछले 2.5 साल में इस भीड़ में से किसी को भी रोजगार दिया है?
Well, several top BJP leaders continued their campaign for the 7th and the final phase of elections in Uttar Pradesh, while Home Minister Rajnath Singh held a rally in Chandoli. He accused the UP government of not undertaking any developmental works in the state. He also alleged that the claims made by the Chief Minister are false. While BJP President Amit Shah also addressed a rally in Ambedkar Nagar and pitched for his party as the only one capable of delivering progress in the state. He also questioned the state government's failure in arresting rape-accused minister Gayatri Prajapati.
मुझे आश्चर्य होता है कैसे समाजवादी पार्टी के मुख्यमंत्री यह दावा करते हैं कि हमने बहुत विकास किया है, जनता को हमने ओला पड़ने के बाद, सूखा पड़ने के बाद पर्याप्त हमने राहत मुहैया कराई है। यह बात समझ में नहीं आती।
उत्तर प्रदेश का विकास नरेंद्र मोदी के नेतृत्व में भारतीय जनता पार्टी ही कर सकती है और कोई नहीं कर सकता है।
And the Election Commission has sought a report from the District Election Officer of Varanasi over Prime Minister's roadshow in Varanasi on Saturday. Well, the poll watchdog wants to know whether prior permission was granted for organizing the roadshow. Well, the roadshow was scheduled on a day when 49 constituencies went to the polls in the 6th phase of the UP Assembly elections on 4th of March. Well, the Congress had approached the Commission alleging that the BJP had not sought requisite permission for the roadshow. It urged the Commission to take cognizance of the offence. Well, BSP Chief Mayawati also urged the Election Commission to investigate the roadshow, alleging it violated the Model Code of Conduct. News from poll-bound Manipur. Well, it is also the last day of campaigning for the second and the final phase of elections in Manipur. Well, 22 seats will vote in this phase on 8th of March. A total of 98 candidates are in the fray in this phase. Well, the elections are being held in the backdrop of economic blockade that has been on since November last year. Remember, the first phase of elections held on 4th of March saw a record turnout of 84%. Remember, and counting of votes will take place on 11th of March. An NDA constituent, Lok Janshakti Party, is fighting against BJP this time in poll-bound Manipur. Will just one sitting MLA to share the seat, while BJP leadership at the centre refused to accommodate its ally. Well, in reaction, Lok Janshakti Party has now fielded 17 candidates from Manipur. Our correspondent Akhilesh Suman spoke to one of them, who is Lok Janshakti's party's vice president and in charge of Manipur. Well, implications of branching it out and how it will impact ties with the BJP in future. Let's take a listen.
लोक जनशक्ति पार्टी के राष्ट्रीय उपाध्यक्ष और दलित सेना के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष रामचंद्र पासवान हमारे साथ हैं। रामचंद्र जी, ये आप एनडीए के घटक हैं और इसके बावजूद मणिपुर चुनाव में आपने अपने उम्मीदवार खड़े किए हैं, इसका क्या कारण है?
नहीं, ये केंद्र में तो हैं, लोकसभा का चुनाव हुआ था तो उसमें हमारे पार्टी के साथ में अलायंस था, आज भी है, लेकिन ये स्टेट का चुनाव है और किसी भी स्टेट का चुनाव में हम अलायंस में नहीं रहे। जैसे अभी भी जिस स्टेट में चुनाव हो रहा है तो कहीं किसी स्टेट में हम गठबंधन में नहीं हैं। मणिपुर में चूंकि हमारा बेस था और पहले से यहाँ हमारे पार्टी के एमएलए थे तो उन एमएलए के कंस्टिट्यूएंसी में भी एनडीए के रूप में हम रहना चाहते थे, लेकिन बीजेपी का जब उम्मीदवार आया और सारा चीज को देखते हुए पार्टी ने फैसला लिया कि हमको चुनाव लड़ना है।
एक भी सीट देने के लिए बीजेपी आपको तैयार नहीं थी?
नहीं, एक भी सीट की बात नहीं है, वो बात जब बना ही नहीं तो
आपका एक सिटिंग सीट था तो उसको देने के लिए बीजेपी तैयार नहीं हुई।
अगर वो उतना तक हो जाता तब तो फिर अलग से कैंडिडेट देने का जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ता।
तो मतलब साफ है कि बीजेपी छोटे जो दल हैं एनडीए के उनको महत्व नहीं दे रही है।
ये तो हम नहीं कह सकते हैं कि उनको महत्व नहीं दे रही है, लेकिन हम लोगों को नहीं मिला, ये हम कह सकते हैं।
तो लोक जनशक्ति पार्टी को इस बात का मलाल जरूर है कि एक सीट लोक जनशक्ति पार्टी के पास थी मणिपुर में और उसे भी मानने के लिए बीजेपी तैयार नहीं हुई। अब एनडीए के सारे जो छोटे घटक दल हैं उन सब के लिए एक तरह का एक संकेत है कि बीजेपी उन्हें चुनाव में कितना जगह देना चाहती है। राज्यसभा टेलीविजन के लिए कैमरा पर्सन प्रशांता कर्माकर के साथ इम्फाल से अखिलेश सुमन।
On to some other news now. Well, there will be a hearing in the Supreme Court today in the Gayatri Prajapati case. Well, the Apex Court had ordered the filing of an FIR against the absconding Uttar Pradesh cabinet minister who is facing rape charges. Well, the SP minister on the run is expected to field a battery of lawyers in the Supreme Court to get a stay on a non-bailable warrant issued against him. Well, the UP police are also working to attach his properties if he continues to evade arrest and does not appear for questioning. Meanwhile, in a related development, Uttar Pradesh Governor Ram Naik wrote to the Chief Minister of the state, Akhilesh Yadav, questioning the constitutional morality and dignity of a rape accused continuing in the state cabinet. Well, Naik in a letter wanted to know if Akhilesh justifies the minister's continuance. Well, Prajapati's passport has been cancelled and a lookout notice has been issued against him. And in Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. We'll be back with more news.
I'm Amritan Shara and you're watching Law of the Land.
Port Trust is a fully held government organization.
Decentralization of decision making, this is going to give a totally different outlook.
3 members will be the functional heads of the port. This is very important.
Watch Law of the Land on Rajya Sabha television.
The art of painting comes to us from the prehistoric period. Paintings are also a valuable source of information about their age. Like this depiction of the wedding procession of Dara Shikoh. The eldest son of Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan had a Mughal wedding with distinctive Indian elements. Like the veil he wears to the pomp and show of the Bharat in Hindu weddings.
Art arisen from a multi-hued cultural canvas. Tradition and cultural fervor dating back centuries. And encircling them all, there's a magic that awes. Embrace your nation's brilliant human warmth. Watch Colors of India, Sundays at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Gyan Chopper is the ancient version of Indian snakes and ladders. This intriguing game was popular among the old, the young and the rulers as well. The chopper has its origin in the Jain philosophy. It tells the story of virtue, symbolized by the ladders, rewarded, while the vices shown by the snakes are punished. Each square in turn also narrates a message of wisdom.
Welcome back after the break. Now, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari embarked on a 2-day trip to Indonesian capital Jakarta. Well, he will be attending the summit of the 21-nation Indian Ocean Rim Association, or the IORA. Now, open maritime trade and rights of navigation are the areas that India will lay emphasis on during the summit. Well, the summit is also expected to pitch for cooperation among think tanks of the member nations to evolve common strategies to meet the conventional and non-conventional threats. Well, the theme of the summit this time is the strengthening maritime cooperation for a peaceful, stable and prosperous Indian Ocean. Well, at the meeting, a declaration on countering violent extremism is also expected to be adopted. The IORA is a 21-member organization. Well, INS Virat, the second aircraft carrier in the Indian Naval Fleet, will be decommissioned today. Well, the class aircraft carrier has spent 30 years in the Indian Navy and before that 27 years in the Royal Navy of the UK. After the decommissioning of the INS Virat, the Navy will be short of 2 aircraft carriers as INS Vikrant has already been decommissioned. Well, earlier known as the HMS Hermes, the ship was in the Royal Navy from 1959. In the late 80s, the Indian Navy purchased it and it was recommissioned in 1987. Well, INS Virat sailed under the town power for the last time from Mumbai to Kochi in July 2016. In October 2016, she was towed out of Kochi and returned to Mumbai. Well, it is the longest serving ship in the history. On to some international news now. Well, according to the Japanese Prime Minister, North Korea has launched 4 ballistic missiles towards the Sea of Japan. Well, 3 of them are reported to have fallen into Japan's exclusive economic zone after flying nearly some 1,000 kilometers. Well, according to the South Korean military, the missiles were fired from near the North Korea's border with China. Well, it is unclear what type of missiles were fired, but the North Korea is banned by the UN from any tests of missile or nuclear technology. On Friday, Pyongyang threatened to fire missiles in response to the 4 Eagle military exercises underway between South Korea and the United States. But the North sees the annual drills as preparation for an invasion against it. Last month, North Korea said that it had successfully test-fired a new kind of ballistic missile in a launch supervised by leader Kim Jong-un. News from the United States now, and India has raised concerns over hate crimes in the US with the authorities there. Well, this comes amid 3 high-profile attacks on Indians in America in the last 10 days. On Sunday, the Indian Embassy in Washington tweeted, Indian Ambassador to US Navtej Sarma conveyed deep concerns to the US government on the attack incidents. Another tweet said that the US State Department expressed condolences over the incidents and assured speedy justice. Well, the meeting came after authorities began investigating the shooting of a Sikh man, Deep Rai, at his home near Seattle, just days after an engineer from India, Srinivas Kuchi Bhotla, was fatally shot in Kansas, and the killing of Hanish Patel in South Carolina. Now, 2 of these attacks are being investigated as possible hate crimes that have triggered fears about travel to that country and the safety of the Indians and Indian origin people in the United States. Well, Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar, during his visit to the US on Friday, had also discussed the incidents with the administration and congressional leaders there. Meanwhile, in the latest incident in Kent, a 39-year-old Sikh, Deep Rai, was working on his car in front of his house when a partially masked man cried, "Go back to your own country," before pulling the trigger, shooting him in the arm. Deep Rai was released from the hospital on Sunday and is reportedly very shaken up.
The victim is a 39-year-old Sikh male, and he was approached, confronted by a subject, and some comments were made to the effect of, "Get out of our country, go back to where you're from," and our victim was then shot.
It was very disheartening to see the news that somebody was actually a victim of hate crime in a city that we have never felt that before. It hasn't happened. So it was really shocking. It took me a few hours to get over it, but now we're here, and we're thankful to our police chief for getting ahead and talking to FBI and actually investigating this as a hate crime.
And a major controversy has been triggered in the United States after President Donald Trump said that his predecessor Barack Obama ordered the tapping of his phones during last year's elections. Well, in a series of tweets, Trump suggested that Obama was behind a politically motivated plot to upend his campaign. He compared the alleged events to Nixon or Watergate and McCarthyism. He called Barack Obama a bad guy. Trump, however, did not offer any evidence. Meanwhile, Obama's spokesperson denied the assertion as simply false. The FBI Director James Comey also rejected Trump's claims. Well, Democrats called on Trump to offer proof and to say publicly what he knows. Well, the Justice Department has yet to issue a statement on the latest reports. But President Trump has urged Congress to investigate what he called were troubling claims alongside its current investigations into allegations of Russian hacking during the election. Meanwhile, Trump supporters rallied across the U.S. after spying claims surfaced.
I can't speak officially anymore, but I will say that for the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign.
It is impossible. The president does not have the ability to call up someone and order a wiretap. So that would mean that a whole lot of people participated in illegality if it didn't go through the FISA court. And I take the president at his word. Donald Trump has presented no evidence that this happened. Before he spoke, this is a key point. If he has evidence, of course make it public. But he should have the evidence before he speaks.
On to sports news now. Well, it is the third day of the second test match between India and Australia, and on day 2, Australian batsmen played commendably to claim the upper hand against India with a vital 48-run lead after reaching 237 for 6 in Bengaluru. Well, opener Natar and Sean Marshall batted hard against the Indian spinners. They're fighting half-centuries consolidated Australia's position in the match. Well, Ravindra Jadeja's 3 wickets backed by efforts from Ishant Sharma, Umesh Yadav as well as R. Ashwin kept the Australian lead under check. While Ashwin bowled a tight line and beat the bat on occasions, it was Ravindra Jadeja who looked like the most lethal among the Indian bowlers. To their credit, the Australians gave a better count of themselves on a 2-paced pitch.
So it looks to me that they've said, okay, it's quite hard to get.
And well, before we wrap up, the tallest national flag in the country, measuring 360 feet, was hoisted on Sunday at the Atari Wagah joint checkpost in Punjab. Well, the flag will be an attraction for the tourists who visit the Atari border to watch the Beating the Retreat ceremony. Earlier, the record of the tallest flag was held by Ranchi at 293 feet high. Well, this new flag can also be seen from Lahore in Pakistan.